Hello, everybody, and welcome to Voxel Viewpoint. I'm Ryan Shepard, and with me today I've got Derrick,
Hey, how's it going?
and we are going back in time to talk about Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Derrick and I have been playing this game for a little while here. It's a very long, very big game, so even though we've been playing it for quite a while, we still really haven't touched the surface. But we're here to let you know what our impressions are so far. And for me anyway, just kind of top level, I am enjoying it. There are some things that are bugging me, but overall, I think this is a very good entry in the series. One that I've a series that I've it's had its ups and downs, but pretty much I've been following it since its inception. So, Derrick, what's your top level before we get into the meat of it?
I've been enjoying it so far. I think it's a nice comeback to the series for me because I had skipped Odyssey. I
Mm-hmm.
did play Origins and really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so this is kind of a lot of the stuff I liked from that, just not as over the top as it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm kind of in the same boat, if you will, with these three games here. This new trilogy starting with Origins. I really liked Origins and played um, played Odyssey, but did not really enjoy it. I restarted that game a couple of times trying to get into it, and each time it just kind of pushed me away before I got too far into it. So this is kind of like their um, third entry in this style of Assassin's Creed game. It's kind of almost like a from a gameplay perspective and a like structure of the open world perspective, a bit of a reboot that started with Origins. It's very heavily influenced by the Witcher 3 style of open world and like the way side quests work and even like in the combat and kind of light loot elements trickled in there. Um, so it takes place during the Viking era of Dark Ages England. So you play as Ivar, who can be male or female. You get to choose that at the beginning, or you get to choose, or you get to let the game choose which gender you play as dynamically throughout the game. And I haven't actually gotten to a point where it's changed yet. I've been the female Ivar the whole time. I don't know if you've encountered any switch. Have you, Derek?
I was gonna go back and switch to that, but it actually carried my save over pretty nicely from the
Oh,
PlayStation
okay,
4, so I just kind of stuck with the female version that I had
okay,
started with to showcase.
mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So it starts you off anyway as the female Ivar, and it hasn't switched for me yet, so I don't know if it's going to be at plot points or at certain activities, or I'm not really sure what the deal is on that. But I guess we'll see. Uh, so yeah, so you can do that. You can choose that out at the beginning, and it starts out with your the present day protagonist Layla, who is now in this like out in the forest in the hills of New England at the in this cabin, kind of secluded because Abstergo's trying to get her and all of this stuff. All this stuff's still going on in the present day, even though it's nowhere near as um, a major part of the story as it was, say, like when Desmond was still around and stuff like that. But she's there, and they find this Viking burial ground, and it's Ivar's uh, like skeleton. So they're trying to figure out like how did a Viking get to the Americas like way before um, any recorded history of that. So that's kind of like the mystery that's going on in the present time period.
Hmm.
And it is very present because they throw in an email about COVID in there just to be like, hey, this is actually taking place today. Um, and
Yeah, and they have aren't we getting close to some like world-ending event again because there's all like the crazy storms going on and they were talking about
yeah,
this one of the
yeah,
satellites falling from the sky.
yeah. So that's I guess what's gonna happen, presumably near the end of the present day stuff of this game is we're getting toward a world-ending event, and these three games have been leading up to that. Layla's been kind of collecting things along her way to try and prevent that from happening and stop the Abstergo, which is of course the present day version of the Templars, from stopping her and getting her and catching her. Um,
Hmm.
so back to the Viking times. You're Ivar. You're part of this clan that's been kind of like you were betrayed and wiped out by another clan. So you're kind of like the only surviving actual heir of that clan, and it's called the Raven Clan, and it's supposed to kind of be a little bit more like in the vein of like sneaking around kind of clan, as opposed to like what you usually think of Vikings, which are these huge giant, hammer wielding um, dudes like raiding and stuff like that. So you're a little bit more nimble, and you are it kicks you off in Scandinavia. So this is kind of like the starting map of the game. It's like a more or less tutorial. It has a like a snippet of all of the little things you'll be doing, like activities and raids and missions. It even kind of gives you a taste of like what high level zones are, because each zone in this game is given like a level rating. So if you go into that zone and you're too low, you're gonna get your ass kicked.
Hmm.
So it kind of gives you a taste of that. And the story there is, um, you and your like, he's not really your brother because he was the he was like your um
I don't know if it was like he's kind of like your adopted brother because you were
yeah,
adopted into another clan.
yeah, that's definitely that's the situation. That's what I was trying to come up with. Yeah, so it's he's like your adopted brother because the your clan got wiped out, and the father of another clan kind of adopted you as one of their own. um so you and him are kind of like real close, and uh King Harold, who, if you're familiar with some Viking lore, especially the Viking TV show, there's a lot of parallels going on in this game. So if you do care to check that show out, I highly recommend it as like a companion to this game, because there are definitely characters and events that take place in those games, in that series, that are also happening in here in this game. So King Harold is famous for being this first Viking that tries to unite all of the clans under peace, and kind of become a little bit more civilized, focusing on trade instead of raiding and war and stuff like that. And you and your brother are not happy about, um, quote unquote, bending the knee to another king. So you decide, we're going to head to England instead of sticking with our clan over here in Norway, and we're going to kind of start our own thing over there. Um,
Hmm.
and like, this is like, say, probably about 20 years ish before, after the Vikings first kind of discovered England was over there. For a while they didn't sail that far, but it's really not that far from Norway to England. So they eventually did find it. So they have a presence in England already. This is Dark Ages England. So it's all just broken up into a bunch of little shires, little hamlets with their own king that wants to say, "Hey, I'm the king of England." And you're just kind of thrust into that and trying to take advantage of the kind of chaos that's going on in England currently. And like I said, this is
Hmm.
before Vikings had already started making a settlement over there. So when you get there, everybody already knows who Vikings are. There are already Vikings there, and there are already Viking settlements there. So it's not like you're starting. It's not like you're discovering this new world for the very first time or anything like that.
Hmm. Which I think like that little aspect they added into it is having them already like somewhat established over there from the earlier ones they've mentioned come out have really set up the area pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
To where it's just like you're not coming in as this completely lost tribe into a new area. You're coming in and there's been other ones there that have failed, and now it's time to see who you can rely on or who you can help and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, and another wrinkle in this story. This is just to set up the story. And by the way, this is probably the first like 10 hours of the game. So this is a very big game with not only just a lot to explore, but also a lot of story to tell. Um,
Hmm.
so your brother, your adopted brother, um, Sigurd, on one of his raids, brought back two um, hidden people. Uh, that's what they call themselves, the hidden ones. They're assassins, and they're very upfront about like saying like
Who they are.
yeah, they're very upfront with who they are, and they're very willing to. Well, at least one of them is willing to kind of adopt Ivar into their ranks because like in the first couple of hours they give you a hidden blade, um,
Hmm.
and like they kind of teach you all of their secret ways. Like they teach you the leap of faith and how to assassinate people like secretly and stuff like that, as
Yeah, and
opposed to what's that?
the blending into the crowd.
Yep, yep. Like yeah, the disguises or whatever.
Hmm.
I forget what it's called. That has a specific name, but blend in, right? It's just called blend in.
I think it's just called blend in,
Yeah,
and then it
um,
utilizes your whatever cloak you have on.
yeah. Like you'll sit down on a bench and you're supposed to not look like you're a
Yeah.
murder
And with
machine.
this one, my question is real quick because I can't quite remember. But is this the first one where we're actually starting out as somebody that's not fully an assassin from the get-go?
Uh, no. So these three games have all been before the assassins have been actually established.
Oh, okay.
So Origins, you play as Bayek, which is one of my favorite characters of the whole series. Um, and he isn't an assassin. He kind of joins up with the people his wife is connected with, and
Right, that's right.
they're the ones that start the hidden ones, the ones that are kind of like they're basically designed to keep the balance of power between the elite and the underclass and the downtrodden or something like or in that. And that kind of evolves into the assassins versus the Templars, who which I forget, I think they're just called the Order right now. um they've gone through, they haven't actually been established as the Templars either, because
Yeah, they had mentioned something about
Templars
it.
as a organization, like a real world organization, don't actually exist until the Crusades. So we're talking about like another 200 to 300 years until they actually form as an actual historic group of people. So
Yeah.
they've been going through different names too, just like the assassins and versus the hidden ones and stuff like that. So yeah, so you that they're teaching you these things, and then they also give you like a list of, hey, these are all of the people that we need to eliminate in this area, in this region. Like the region of England, basically. Um,
Hmm.
and just like Odyssey, which in Odyssey was called the Cult of Cosmos, uh, you need to uncover clues in order to reveal who these people are. And you start with like the low level peons, and then they reveal, who the next level up is, like, lieutenants, and then like
Okay.
the top of the food chain, basically. And your goal is to kind of work your way up to the top and eventually, um, you know, kill whoever's the leader of the order in England, basically. Um, and that's all kind of like a subplot to this game. That the primary plot is about Ivar and her friends and her clan coming over to England and trying to get a foothold and kind of working within the politics of what's going on in England. So, I'm obviously these two storylines, they converge, but the whole assassination thing and the order and everything, just like it was in most of Odyssey, I believe, you can just kind of ignore it if you don't want to engage with it at all. Um, because there isn't, the way that this game is structured is quite a bit different than, um, not only Assassin's Creed, but a lot of other open world games, in that you really only have a main quest that you're following. And at the beginning of when you first arrive in England, you get to choose between basically either going north or going south. And Derek, I know you chose the south direction. I chose the north direction. And that's really the only quest, like, other than build up your settlement, that you have on your quest log.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it
Everything
was.
else, like the order, has its own page in the menu, but there are no quests associated with it. It's just you put your cursor over one of the characters and it tells you where it is, and you can investigate them.
Hmm.
Um, but there is
And
no actual quest that pops up. What was
I
that?
think I think too with the order is one of the places we can build is actually like a hub in town for them. And then
Hmm.
supposedly once you have that built, we're supposed to start being able to go there to get missions for them. So I don't
Yeah,
know
no,
if
no,
that'll kind
that's
of
so
change how
you
they
get
work.
that when you build that, you get that order tab on your, um,
Okay, so that's what gives you the tab.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
that's
because that
what
was going
gives
to
you
be
the
the
tab.
next thing I got.
And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't actually put quests on your in your log. It's just like a rumor board, basically, strings tying people
Okay.
together, and you trying to figure out who's at the top of the list.
Okay.
And maybe along the way there will be quests that you get, like actual followable quests and stuff like that, but right now this is all it is. And
Hmm.
even side quests are handled differently in this game, whereas they're not tracked. They're not tracked on your log. There, it isn't um, like a regular mission that just gets a little drop down list in your quest log that says these are side missions. They're not really important, but you can go back and do them. Uh, the side quests here are like just little tiny vignettes. Like you go up to um, you go up to a character that you can talk to, and you talk to them, and they tell you what their problem is, what's going on, and you kind of solve the problem right there. You don't like it doesn't turn into like this big long adventure or anything like that. You
No, they're.
What's that?
I was just gonna say, yeah, they're pretty contained, and it's actually been pretty nice. And
Yeah,
I think for like the more major ones, they're aren't they where tick off our mysteries as we find them?
yeah. So that's what they show up as on the map. They show up as a little icon that's a mystery. Um, and you each zone has a certain amount of mysteries, a certain amount of wealth you can find, which is like treasure and gear. And
Hmm.
there's another
It's the artifacts.
artifacts, yeah, which are like ancient artifacts that you can find. But the way that the game handles it is it just puts these little white and yellow dots on the screen, and you don't know what they are until you're within, say, like, 50 yards of the dot, right?
Hmm.
So it's not
Yeah.
like you can see all of these icons on the map and say, okay, I want to go. Like, I know this is going to be a side quest. I know this is going to be a treasure chest. I know this is going to be a this. I know this is going to be a that. You actually have to go to it and discover what it is. And that leads to like a real repeatable sense of mystery because there's so
Hmm.
many points where I walked into this area like I know there's something here because I put a little mark on the map, but then when I wandered into it, there's like maybe some weird some creepy looking trees or some weird stone structures and stuff, and I'm not 100% sure what is actually going to be there until I start to really investigate it.
Yeah.
And it just keeps all of those little side activities way more interesting than like, oh, I know this is going to be a treasure chest, or I know this is going to be a bandit camp immediately when I come up to it. So
Mhm.
I can prepare or I can avoid it. It just gives it a little bit a sense of tension and a sense of like real exploration that I think a lot of these open world games that just throw a bunch of random icons on your map kind of miss out on.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been really nice, and they've set it up pretty well. And even if like we'll just take like the wealth ones for example, like you may have this like really big predominant dot that it shows for like that area. Hey, you know, fight through here, do whatever you have to do, and you're gonna get a nice treasure chest.
Mm-hmm.
But then when doing that, there might be like a yellow named enemy, or I don't know if we're gonna call them named enemies, but like the yellow enemies that have
Yeah,
like a
they're
more predominant name.
the game refers to them as elites.
Okay. So the elite enemies. So when you kill one of them, they're going to have wealth on it. But if you're killing a bunch of people and then trying to get to that bigger one, you might miss that. Because, like, I zoomed out. I was like, all right, I'm in this area. I left. And I was just looking around on the map and I was like, what's this really smaller, like, pinpointed dot?
Mm-hmm.
And I zoomed in and that's what it was. I went all the way back, had to clear out some more enemies because they came back because I didn't completely grab everything from that area.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like two smaller ones that I missed there.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah. So
really,
yeah,
really wants you to explore.
I wish the game, like, I know you missed it, so I wish the game would be a little bit better about pointing that stuff out to you when you were there. Uh, because
Hmm.
otherwise, the only way you can notice some of these is if you actually open up the map and zoom way in to where you are. Which every time a game asks me to open up the map, I feel like in terms of immersion, it's kind of failed a little bit. Like I should
Hmm.
be able to. There should be clues within the game, like visually, that I'm missing something here. Whether it be, I mean, even if it was just them bringing a mini map back to the game, um, would help with something like that. Um,
Yeah, I think lately that's been like the weirdest like lacking thing in some games is like the little mini maps. Because sometimes they
yeah,
make sense. I get for immersion for some games, but maybe the option to toggle that on or off.
yeah. I think with this one in particular, there needed to just be something more. Like mini map versus compass. I'm kind of like, you know, design the game that you want to design, but make sure that what you do design um, works out. Like doesn't lead to things like you
Hmm.
miss this tiny little yellow dot on the map, so you got to come all the way back to it. Um,
Right.
a lot of times you can kind of get away with that by doing the Odin vision or whatever. Uh, and those things will highlight, like treasure chests and stuff will highlight in your view, but it's not perfect. It kind of like gives
It's
you, it doesn't really
very
point you.
short too.
Yeah, it's a very short window that it scans, and things can be like, above you or below you, behind you, and it doesn't really point you in any direction and say, "Hey, there's something it detected over here." It's more like you got to scan, and then you got to like move the
Figure out
camera
how they
around.
get
Like
it.
where is it? Where is it? I know it hit something because it gave me the sound, but it doesn't really convey exactly where it is. So there's definitely a little bit there that they got real close and then they didn't quite seal the deal on that kind of stuff, which is a little disappointing because if they had just figured out like just for that one thing, so I don't have to open up my map and see if there are any yellow dots remaining. If they did that one thing, it would have it would have really made a big difference. Uh,
Hmm.
and yeah, I just think in terms of like their open world structure and everything this time around, they did a really great job. It just looks amazing. Uh, the
No,
the
yeah,
the English countryside that they've created here is just it's unbelievable. It's like it's like they
yeah.
took all of the what they've been doing and like uh it just reminds me of like Lord of the Rings, the Lord of the Rings movies when you see the big pans across
Mhm.
the green rolling fields with a few forests here and rocky crags there and everything like that, and just like
Hmm.
a tower off in the distance, because that's kind of like what this England is right now. It's very uninhabited. There's only a few like big cities, and even there's in like a handful of smaller towns that are currently growing out of it. So there's a lot of open area. There's a lot of just grass and trees, and like it's the way that in you can see far, like that's
Oh
what
yeah, you can like
yeah
the field of view on this is like, or the depth I think it
yeah like the
is
distance you can see.
really nice. Yeah, is really nice. And like speaking of like you saw a lot of the hills and stuff because you went more north, whereas when I went to south where I was working on, I actually came into like a swamp area.
Hmm.
And I actually was in there long enough that it went through like a night and day cycle, and it just looks so awesome.
Yeah.
Like the fog there, the reflections from the water, to being into like the swamp a little bit, wading through with like
Hmm.
the tall grass and everything around you. It was just it was a really nice detailed area.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they did a amazing job with the environment and the effects, and like even at night when the moon is out and almost as bright as it's almost as bright as the sun, but
Yeah.
it's not. It's still darker, but it still really gives off a really cool effect. Um, and yeah, it just does such a good job of like you climb to the top of a building or a mountain or something, and there's almost always something to see on the horizon, like another a town with a tower sticking out of it, a church, or something on top of a mountain. So like
Hmm.
it kind of again goes back to like what if they figured out a way to just not have a map at all and just be
Right.
like go based on what you see in the distance and see what you discover along the way. That would be like that would be for me like a, a system that works like that, probably like the ultimate exploration for an open world game. um,
Hmm.
and they I'm happy to see that they are getting there, but they're still like one or two steps away from achieving that. And yeah, and yeah, just to kind of wrap up the world aspect of it, like the open world, because we'll get into combat and I want to revisit the story a little bit, but the variety of the stuff that you do out there is kind of interesting too. I've come across some puzzles. I've come across some like you got to make offerings to a shrine, and then there are
Okay, I
those
haven't seen
those
that yet.
fly
Flighting.
mushrooms that you eat.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Oh, that was so much fun.
yeah, and they're like trippy mushrooms that put you into like some sort of haze, and you're like hallucinating things and everything like that. I know there's one in the well, there are actually two in the starting area, and then I just found my first one in England, and I'm not gonna spoil it, but seals were involved.
Oh, God.
That's all
Yeah,
I'm gonna
so far
say.
I've only found the one.
Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. Um, and they're not. Well, I had a little trouble with it because of some of the way that it was kind of presenting itself, what was actually happening. But they're not difficult. These aren't like combat challenges or really puzzles to solve. You're just kind of walking through doorways. But it's more about like the bizarre stuff that's going on. That's that's really cool. And
Hmm.
yeah, and it's different, right? It's not just a treasure chest you're opening. It's not just another bandit cap you're clearing out. It is something different, and you don't really know what it is until you're right on top of it, and then you're like, oh, cool, a nice little shroom trip.
Yep. Yep. Like I said, the first one I did accidentally because there are some mushrooms around that you can eat that give you like a little bit of boost temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find it like within stuff, like when you're picking up like food and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I started noticing, at least in England, I started noticing that there were some ones where you get little temporary buffs from eating them.
Yeah. There's some that also hurt you, so you got to be careful. I picked up some that actually caused a little bit of damage, and I was like, oh, don't eat that one again. So yeah, that's the other thing that like a lot of the healing stuff is a lot of the healing items in this game are like naturally built into the world. So it's like some healing mushrooms on the ground that look natural, like berry bushes, and then when you're in settlements and camps and stuff, it'll be like you'll go up to a pot of stew on a
Hmm.
fire, and you'll take a sip of it, and you'll take some of it and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um,
and everything's very, I feel, is very well placed. As where you like some games they'll have this kind of aspect, but there's either way too much of it or it's so sparse where it's super tedious. I
yeah,
think with this, it's always been like the right amount. Like whenever I got to that point where I needed it, I've been able to find it, but it's not like it's been like everywhere you turn.
yeah, yeah. It feels natural within the environment, and as for one thing, and yeah, it's always been like very rarely, unless I'm in combat and I'm getting my butt kicked, have I been like, oh man, I need healing stuff. I don't have enough of it. Um, so yeah, that's a which I don't think I don't remember how Odyssey dealt with healing or Origins for that matter.
I think Origins was kind of the same way,
Was it?
if I remember, because I remember being able to press to get some health back.
You remember being able to what?
Like how you do it in this one, how you can press the button and it'll use some of that resource. I think it
Oh
was the
yeah, yeah.
same way.
It's always Assassin's Creed's always been there's always been like a healing resource. Uh, a little bit regenerates over time. Actually, maybe the old ones you used to do full regeneration. Um, I'm just wondering if like how you actually got that resource in the older games, like whether or not if it was like a medicine pickup, like a health pickup, or if it
Yeah.
was food like it is in this game. I forget. But yeah, speaking of healing during combat, um, for better or worse, the combat here is better than it's been for the last two games, which isn't saying much because I don't think the combat in Origins or Odyssey is particularly good. Uh, you you do feel kind of like you're floating. Uh, you don't really have a lot of in this game. It feels a little bit better, but you don't have a whole lot of heft or precision. It feels like behind your swings, at least for me, that's my interpretation of this combat. And maybe I'm like been ruined by Dark Souls and Bloodborne and stuff like that. Uh,
No, I feel the same way. I kind of noticed it like when I sat down today and played like a good chunk of it. I was like, okay, now that I'm doing more, it's like it's a little bit off.
hmm
Like it doesn't make it like, oh god, this is horrible,
yeah,
but it definitely could be worked on a little bit.
yeah. It just feels like you kind of it just all everything just kind of degenerates into button mashing to
Yeah. I
kind
was
of
having a
like,
hard time with my heavy attacks not working right all the time.
oh really?
Like it just didn't feel responsive when it was time for the heavy attack, but
Yeah,
the light attacks, I could do them all day. I could kind of get them to go where I wanted to.
yeah. Yeah, so the combat system is a little bit different in this game, in that uh, you have your heavy and light, which has been in the previous games, but your heavy attack and dodging actually use stamina. So stamina is something that hasn't been in the previous two, uh, and you actually regain stamina by using light attacks, which is
Maybe that's where I'm
a
fucking
weird
up.
system. Yeah, if
I
you
didn't
keep
realize heavy used stamina.
Yeah, if you keep hitting that heavy attack, you'll run out of stamina and you'll be like and you'll have to regenerate it. Um and you can do that by landing hits with your um light attack, which
Okay.
is it's just a strange, it's a little bit of a weird system. Like it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense that also hitting would regain stamina, but
Hmm.
um it's a interesting system that at least prevents you from just spamming the heavy attack over and over again, because that's
Uh,
basically what a lot of the combat would boil down to in the previous games, was just using that heavy attack over and over again to wipe people out. um,
yeah.
yeah, and that's the only spot there is stamina. Once you're out of combat, you can just run forever. There isn't like a stamina gauge there or anything like that. It's only when you're
Oh.
in combat that you have to worry about
Mhm.
managing that stamina.
And
Um,
then, was there abilities in the last one like we have now?
yeah, there were abilities in the last two,
Okay.
and I'm very mixed on the abilities. I think they've done a better job in this game than the previous two. The previous two, a lot of times I just totally forgot about them. Uh,
Yeah, I haven't used them much because it takes a lot to get that one bar that you have filled.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's one problem, is that yeah, you have like a separate gauge that you need to fill in order to use them. And the other thing is that with the exception of a few of them, they're very circumstantial,
yeah,
and they yeah, I just forget about it because it's like you have to hold the trigger and then remember what button you have each one mapped to,
yep.
and it's a little bit too much in the heat of combat. I think they're pretty good as like a finishing move, or like an opener, like that multi axe throw one
See,
is.
I don't. That's the one I don't like. Like,
Oh
I think it's
really?
very like, because I'll be like in an area and it'll hit the guy in front of me that I'm aiming for, and that third one for some reason every time I 180 turn around and throw it to the farthest fucking person away from me. Like,
Yeah,
I ain't even gonna go help them yet, bro. They're fine.
yeah.
But the multi shot for the arrow, I use that. That's what I usually save it for. And then the other one I got was the charge, where you like charge somebody and knock them to the ground. That
hmm
was fun for the
yeah.
first time, but I don't think I'd always use it.
Yeah, that charge one especially, it's like this big elaborate cutscene that pans out and stuff like that. It's just a little bit too much in the middle of a fight. That's why I think
Yeah,
they're maybe meant for more like openers and closers. Um,
yeah,
so
but
I do like the axe one. I haven't used the um, that multi-shot one enough to know whether or not I like it. Um, and the other one I like is I unlocked a harpoon that is kind of like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. You throw a harpoon at a guy, and then you can either throw him in one direction or you can pull him toward you, uh, which is pretty cool, especially for, like I said, like a finisher. So like you got a guy down to almost like an elite down to almost nothing, and then he's
Hmm.
kind of far away, or he's like a spearman or something like that. So you throw this harpoon at him and you pull him close, and then it goes into like a finisher move where you like stab him through his head or something like that.
Oh yeah, I love that one with the when you grab the spear from him.
Yeah,
You just like
yeah.
and the stomp. I love the stomp.
The stomp, yeah.
That's that's my favorite thing. It's just
Yeah,
like I'll
just
get like three or four of them in a row, and I'm just like stomp, 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 stomp.
you can do that to the guards and stuff you find sleeping too.
Oh shit, really?
Yeah, you can either assassinate them or you can stomp them.
Oh, that's great. I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to keep a lookout for that when I see some sleeping ones, just
yeah,
because that's been so satisfying. Or I think it's the same one where you beat the shit out of them with the shield.
yeah. Well, yeah. There's like finishers. So when they're stunned on the ground, which is when they you get their stamina bar down. They have like two bars. They have the health bar, and then they have a stamina bar at the top. And then once you get that down, they'll then be like stunned. So then you can do like a special move that either kills them in one hit, or if they're an elite, it'll just do a bunch of damage.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, like that's new from in this game, like that system. Um, not the abilities. The abilities aren't new, but the like stunning them and doing like a special finishing move, that's new. So there's definitely more to this combat than there has been in the previous games, but there's still like a kind of floatiness to it that doesn't feel as good as it could. Uh,
Yeah. No, I
like I
totally
said, and
agree on
like
that.
probably more related to like I'm expecting more from third person action combat because of like Dark Souls and stuff like that, but also um it's just it's lacking a little bit.
Yeah, just
Um
because you don't feel as heavy
yeah.
as the character should feel, so it's kind of like it's just a little bit of like jarring feeling.
Yeah. Uh the raiding is fun though. Like you can take your
Oh
boat up and down
yes.
the river and just raid these little hamlets along the river, like abbeys and trading villages and stuff like that, and just kind of blow your horn and yell and scream, and all your dudes jump out of the boat and start slaughtering everybody.
Yep, it's a
Uh,
good time.
yeah, that's a good time. I just did
And there's
one, and I don't know if this will be exactly when the video is, but I recorded it, so I'm definitely putting it in this episode. I just did a pretty big one where there were these like grain silos that I was blowing up as I was like
that's
going.
funny because I just burnt down an entire village.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so this was like they were like these there are these flaming pots everywhere that you can shoot and they blow up, but all of these grain silos, they all had them next to them and they all had archers on them. So if you took out those, they would just blow up and then they'd be on fire, and then everything else was on fire, and it was just crazy.
Sounds like
uh,
a good time.
yeah, it was a pretty good time.
And I think
Uh,
right before doing all this, I was saving cats. I went from saving these cats on this weird ass little side mystery to like, hey, we're gonna burn down this entire village because fuck these people.
yeah, well, that's the kind of chaos cats like. Um, I haven't found any cats yet. I'm
Yeah, this
sad.
one was the guy was having a rat problem. And it turned out there was this like crazy old lady who thought she was like the master of the cat. So if your charisma's high enough, I think you need two charisma.
Hmm.
You can make her believe she's some sort of queen, and then she'll give you the key to unlock where she's got all the cats kept.
Yeah,
And then they'll come all like bursting out of there, and they'll go take care of the rat problem. It was a good time. They
yeah.
let you pick up one too.
Those are the kinds of quests though that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
That
Oh my God.
that's it. That was probably like a 10-minute, not even, right?
Yeah, no, it was like 5 minutes.
Yeah. And
And then we had that one with the person with dementia, and he was like
yeah,
running around this little island like it was set up like his kingdom, and
yeah, giving you the
there was a
tour.
fake king. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
Uh but then so they'll have these silly ones like I just ran into this. I was telling you in the chat, he has 100% an American accent. So he comes up and he starts talking. Everyone else has either the Norse accent or the English accent. So this
Mhm.
guy is immediately like, I'm like, what is this? Is this just like a really bad voice actor? Like, what is going on here? And the guy's name is Otto Sluggerson. And
Such a good name.
and he has the American accent and he's totally supposed to be like, I invented baseball, because he has this club and he's hitting rocks into like it's basically set up like the positions of the dummy figures are set up like the bases at baseball, so he's hitting rocks towards them and all the kids are like cheering and like, oh, he's so awesome and everything like that. And it was just the most ridiculous thing that I just randomly came across. And like all voice acted, all cutscenes and everything like that. So like they know what they're doing. Um, and then there was, just to contrast it, there was one I came across where this little girl was crying near a tree, and you go up to her and you're like, what's going on? And she's like, well, my dad said he'd be home before the last leaf fell off this tree, and there's one leaf like hanging there. And so you find out that like the dad left the little girl alone for the summer. He's probably not coming back because it's been a very long time, and she's all upset because the last leaf is going to fall off the tree. Blah blah blah. So
Hmm.
then you have like a couple of dialogue choices of like, give her like give her hope, like I'm sure he'll be back soon, like, or get over it, it's he's probably dead. And or like, even if he is gonna come back, you should probably prepare, like kind of like the pragmatic way to do it. And like if he does come back, great, happiness, extra
Hmm.
bonus. So I chose that one, and she was like, yeah, I'll do that. And then she just went back to crying. So I knocked the leaf off the tree, and at first she's like freaking out, and then I was like, I did it because you should move on, but hopefully he'll be back, blah blah blah. So she was like, oh, that you're right. So she got over it. And then you could pick up the leaf and put it on a stool in the house. Like you could actually pick it up and then carry it in and put it on a stool in the house, so she like has it as a remembrance thing. And it's just like tiny little details like that. That's
Hmm.
kind of crazy. Um,
Yeah, and like you said too, with like what they have voice acted and stuff, and like usually side quests like this and some of the other ones we've come across don't normally get shown this kind of love.
yeah,
And everything's been thought out, and even with like the dialogue choices, like usually we've got like three choices, but they're all usually like pretty good, like depending how you're playing your character or how you want to react to it, one of the three usually kind of suits that mood pretty good.
yeah, yeah. There's usually like either a peaceful, an aggressive, or a neutral one, or like a gruff one or a more eloquent one, depending on how you want to play your character and stuff like that.
Hmm.
It's yet to see where any of those like mood choices go, like tone choices and stuff like that, if they have any effect later on. But I guess we'll see. Um, and yeah, real quick, I just want to circle around back to the story, because I specifically chose to go north because it follows the Sons of Ragnar Lothbrok quest line, which is basically when you come to England, you find their abandoned camp that they had set up. It's more than a camp; it's like a longhouse, and there's like a dock and everything. It's a town that they were starting to set up. but it's abandoned. So you adopt it for yourself and you start building it out. This is kind of the meta side of raiding, where you when you do these special raiding missions, you get supplies that you can then bring back to your camp and start building it out. Like the first thing you need to do is build a blacksmith that can help upgrade your armor. You can build a trading post. You can build the bureau for the assassins, etc., etc. So that's kind of like a meta game you're playing throughout the entire game, kind of building out your home base. But as I mentioned, this was where the sons of Ragnar Lothbrok, which it was is credited anyway with being the first Viking to sail across and quote unquote discover England for the Vikings, and uh, the Vikings TV show is all about him. Like the first chunk of seasons is all about him, and then partway through that saga, his sons start to like grow up and become major characters, and that's kind of where this game is taking place in that timeline, and it's all semi-based in history, semi-based in myth, and stuff like that, because there isn't like a really good recording of history of that time, so it's kind of like a mixture of both. But
Mm-hmm.
I chose to go that route because I wanted to see where they took like a story I already knew and kind of like tweaked it and adapted it to make it their own. And they have made some changes, certainly, at least based versus the TV show. Um, but there are a lot of returning characters that I'm like, oh yeah, I know him. I know that guy. I know like the son Ivar and Uba, the sons Ivar and Uba. There are other sons too. I don't know if they're gonna show up, but those are the two that are there right now. Uh, and yeah, it's just really cool to see just like a semi different retelling of a story that I'm familiar with. And yeah, like I said earlier, if you want to get like a little bit of a primer for this game, and kind of get in the mood, so to speak, that's a great show to check out. It's all streaming on Amazon Prime, so if you have subscription to that, you can just watch it, and it's really good. Um, and it's this game is definitely so far anyway, like in terms of like cool Viking entertainment media, is kind of scratching that itch just as well as that show is. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see where that story keeps going, because there's a lot of places it goes in the show. So there's a lot of things that they could do in the game too. So we'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
How has your adventure in the South been?
No, it's been a lot of fun. It's definitely been interesting. So you're kind of like regrouping with one of the bands that have come through before you, and they were kind of like the scouts and the warriors and stuff like that. But they had established an entire town, and you kind of help them take it back. And now you're trying to in the midst of trying to figure out who is the one of that person's Soma, one of her friends is betraying them. So
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to like figure that out, but at the same time you're trying to figure out how to do that because it doesn't specifically tell you. But like I ran into some paint inside the place and I started to follow it through a tunnel and out, and it started this whole other thing. And then it ended at like where I had the last clue. So now it's like, all right, where am I going to collect more information now? So that's when I kind of started heading on to like the next three subsets of things it has you that you can do. One of which was going to burn down that town. And then like we rescued some of the lieutenants. That part was what was happening into the swamp when I was seeing all that happening.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so right now I'm just kind of heading through to the next person to help them out. It's kind of like getting to know these three lieutenants now, so that you can try to make some of your inside decisions on how to what's the word I'm looking for?
Like align
Best
yourself with them.
inform. Yeah, it's kind of how to like best tell some or give like your best insight on who you think is the betrayer. So you kind of like, at least what it
Oh,
seems
right.
is
Okay.
you're going to do a little something with each person while trying to collect that information.
Hmm.
But then I don't know if the clues that I found in the town are going to tie into my interactions because I kind of think I know who it is already.
Hmm.
So I think I'm getting ready to come up to that person. So we'll see what happens.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited to check that out. I think I'm going to be able to check that out. I don't
Yeah, I think you
really.
can do both because
Yeah.
the quest line that you're doing, it shows like it's on my log.
Yeah, it's still up there for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll be excited to check that out. I guess the one thing I gotta say, reiterate here, is that this feels more than any other game I've played since 2015. This feels more like The Witcher 3 than any other game I've played. I feel
Hmm.
like, in terms of obviously the setting and the Norse mythology, and the way that the story is unfolding, like it's very much kind of entrenching you in, like the opening part of The Witcher 3, which is a massive chunk of the game, but you're kind of dealing with this same situation where you have these two um, kind of like rival kings, and there you don't really have two rival kings here, but the whole way England is working right now is all of these kings are kind of at each other's throats. So, and you're kind of being thrust into it, and you're a lot like The Witcher, trying to navigate your way through it while coming out on top on the other end. And just like the way that you're kind of the passer through kind of person amongst all of these bigger players, really gives that feel of like what The Witcher is. And again, couple that with the setting being pretty much like not obviously The Witcher takes place in a fake universe, but the look of the setting, like the way that the environment looks and the time period that it's taking place, is absolutely cribbed from this time period. Um, and it just, there's so many times where I was like riding along with with Sigurd and Uba and Ivar, uh, and thinking like this could be a mission from The Witcher. Like I was riding along with them, having a conversation. We were going to a war camp outside of a fortress. It's like so in line with everything that was going on in the opening hours of that game. Um, and
Hmm.
it's definitely what they've been going for. Ubisoft has been with this reboot, so to speak, of Assassin's Creed, and it is cool to see them finally like really get there and start giving me those kinds of feelings that I had once I really got into that game. Once I really got into The Witcher 3. Um, so I'm just really excited to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, I was like, I think this is going to be one of the first times where I actually want to like go through and play like, because I think with Origins, I enjoyed that because of the Egypt setting, but I
Yeah,
only played like half of it before it kind of just fell off for me.
yeah,
But like
yeah. These games
with
are huge.
yeah, with this one though, I was like, I want to play through. I want to get my place built up. You know, it can get raided, so you've eventually got to protect it once you start getting big enough.
Hmm.
So I want to do that, and I kind of want to see where the story's going because I'm always interested about what's going on in present time in these games.
Hmm.
Um, and this one I think has had like the least amount of really knowing what's going on outside of
Yeah.
y'all trying to stop the end of the world again. Because I think it's been like the smallest time and where they didn't really like. You played quite a bit before it pulled you out of the Animus the first time.
Yeah, they've been kind of doing that. It's hard to tell when they're actually going to pull you in and out of the Animus. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you can leave the Animus whenever you want. Uh, so when you're on the menu screen, you can actually, there's like a button that says Animus or whatever, and you can actually pull yourself out if you want to see what's
Okay.
going on in the real world. There are definitely moments where it will automatically pull you out for story stuff, but I think you can pull yourself out if you want to explore around as Layla and check out like if you've got any new emails or if there's new dialogue with some of the characters there.
Right. Okay.
Then they've been
Have to
doing
keep a
that.
lookout for that.
I don't know if they did that in Origins, but they definitely did that in Odyssey, where you could just kind
Nah.
of pull yourself out whenever you wanted.
Yeah, in Origins, I think it was all more like scripted into the actual thing. Like it would pull you out at like certain times,
Hmm. Yeah,
and
yeah. So
yeah,
you can do that. I don't really know if there's going to be anything substantial going on, but you can at least check it out and see what's there if you're hankering for it. Um, yeah, I think this is probably the best the series has been at since. Well, I really liked Origins, but I don't think Origins was like I liked it, but I don't think it was a super great Assassin's Creed game. Um, but this is probably the best I think the series has been since Black Flag, um, which is
hmm
which is good because which is crazy because that's like I think the best one um,
yeah, I
across
would
the
agree with
board.
that. Black Flag was probably the last one that I've completely like completed from beginning to end.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny that came out at the beginning of last generation too. That was the cross gen
Yeah,
one. You could
yeah, it
you
was.
could play that on 360 or you can play it on Xbox One or PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4. And now we've got this one also being able to do that across generations. Um, I know you were having as far as I can tell you're having pretty good experience on PlayStation 5.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I had that one little like hiccup where I did some screen tearing, but ever since the last update they put out,
Hmm.
and it was only when I was hopping on the longboat and taking command of it, where the game kind of pans you into your view of how you're going to steer the boat,
Yeah.
which is absolute garbage. I think that's probably the worst part of the game right now is steering the damn boat.
Yeah.
Um, when it did that weird little pan animation, it would tear a little bit across the screen,
Hmm.
and that was happening in performance mode. Since the patch came out and I heard they stabilized everything, I switched over to quality because this game is absolutely gorgeous.
Hmm.
And I haven't had any issues like that. I've been in and out of the boat a lot in a lot of different areas. It stayed smooth. I haven't noticed any drops.
That's good.
So as
Um,
of that last little update they did, everything's been running really good. Like I said, that is on the PlayStation 5. I did start the game on the PlayStation 4 Pro,
mhm.
and it was working great on there. I played the entire intro to the game there. Um,
Mhm.
to show off because that's when it came out and that's what I had at the time. And then I was able to get the 5. So that's when I switched over to there because it actually, I was going to restart. That's when we were talking about the whole ban us being able to choose. Um, but it was actually been the easiest game to carry over my save. I just booted it and then boom, there it was. So I was like, all right, I'm going to keep going then.
Mhm. Yeah. So they rolled out Ubisoft rolled out their cross everything save system. So you're technically supposed to be able to bring your saves across any platform, across anything. So like if you wanted to jump over to PC, you'd be able to bring your PlayStation 5 save over, uh, stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. So there's been some issues with that since they've rolled it out. So mileage may vary, and always try to have your own backup of that kind of stuff if you can. But it seems
Yeah.
like in terms of like crossing over between versions, it's worked pretty well.
Yeah,
Um,
especially with the updates they put out to a couple of games to fix it. Because, like I said, prior with I know Borderlands isn't one, but Watch Dogs, I had to go back to the PlayStation 4 version, um, upload that save, and then switch to the PlayStation 5 version, and then download the save.
mhm. Yeah.
And the same thing for Borderlands 2, which is super tedious because I had already saved all my save files to the PlayStation 5, up to the cloud, downloaded them to that system
Yeah.
and had given away my 4, so I didn't have that. But luckily, you're able to actually switch which version of the game you want to play if there is two versions on the 5. And I just had to wait for like the PlayStation 4 version to re-download.
Yeah.
And then I did that real quick and then just deleted that off because I guess like on here too, I'll throw that out. If you're installing some of the games and you're on one of the new gen systems, look to see if both versions of the games are installed Because I noticed a couple times I had selected just for the PlayStation 5 version, but it downloaded the 4 too, and a lot of the times that file is bigger than the PlayStation 5 or your Xbox Series X version. I don't know if it happens the same way on there, but I think that could be a lot of people's problem with some of the storage issues right now with it filling up so quick is if you're not
Yeah.
playing some of those super huge games that it's the multiple versions, and you can go in there and it's super easy to see which one's 4, which one's 5, and then get those deleted off. And once I did, I freed up like 300 gigs of space that I was like, where's all this actually going? And then I saw that and I was like, oh, okay, so it's really not that bad because I'm still holding off from using my hard drive or anything with it.
Yeah, yeah, I guess it's been there's been some little bit of confusion with that on the PlayStation 5 with the different downloading and stuff. I'm not sure how it works on the Xbox. I don't have it, so um, yeah, just be aware of that so you're not downloading two of the
Yeah.
same game,
And
unless
you
you need
can
to.
accidentally be playing the wrong version too. I had
Right.
that happen once where I had thought it was switched over to the 5 and it was actually the 4 version when I checked where the check mark was because it's super easy to check. It's just, do
It's
you know how
just
to do it?
yeah, you just
Yeah.
have to know how to do it, and you have to make sure that it is checked the right way.
Yep.
Um, yeah. Uh, all right. I guess that's gonna do it. Unless there's anything else you want to throw in here.
There's a skill tree. It's massive.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah. Oh
but
yeah, that's something I kind of want to throw something in too. So you can go ahead and talk, and then I'll chime in.
I don't know. I kind of like how it's set up because it's kind of like you have your different ways you can play. I think they give you a nice, good starting point, and then as you branch out, like it'll start like instead of having fog of war on the map, they have fog of war on your skill tree.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best way to explain it. And so far I'm liking it. Like, um, I started off being like, hey, I don't want to play stealth or have any stealth stuff. But as I started unlocking some stuff on the archery tree, it's like, oh, but if you do your first shot like this, then you can get a couple of those. So it kind of made me change around. Um, but we'll see how it goes as we get up more in power because like you kind of get like 2 skill points at a time at certain points in time for doing certain things and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. So I guess for me, the over like I think it's good so far, but once we get in there more, like how much of a crux is it going to become if I don't have enough points, or is the game going to be do pretty good at like keeping you up with where it should be? If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
So the leveling does work a little strangely in here. So you don't actually level up until you spend those points. So you will get the points, and then they just kind of sit in a pool until you go into your skill tree and you assign them, and then every time you use one, your overall level goes up one, and that level coincides with the recommended levels in the regions in the game. So, like, the first region that you land in England is a level 20 region. Um, and when I got to that area, I was level 32. So, I was way over leveled for the area. I was taking guys out in like one or two hits, light hits. And I was like, this is way too easy. But what I discovered was it's super simple to respec. So basically, you can take out all of your skill points, start yourself at level 0, and then reapply them. So what I'm doing now is I'm accruing skill points, but I'm not using them because I'm
Mm-hmm.
still in these level 20 areas, and I want the combat to still be a little bit challenging. And the only drawback of that is you're not unlocking as many skills as early on because so there's bonuses to like attack and health and stuff like that, these little upgrades, and then there are bigger um, like it's like a hub and spoke kind of thing almost, where you have the hub that gives you an actual special ability or a skill or something like that, and then the web to get you there just gives you tiny little buffs to like your health and your attack and your stealth attack and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But every one you use bumps your level up one, your overall level. So
Mm-hmm.
right now I have like 30 points that are unslotted, waiting for me to finish these early regions so I can then slot them in and get me on the right level with, whatever the next region is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's not a great system. It's not a great way to have to micromanage that the way it is, but at least there is a way to kind of um, uh, keep yourself at the right level without accidentally over leveling, which is a very easy thing to do if you're like me and spend 10 hours exploring to 1 hour actually doing the story.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. And kind of along with that, they do have microtransactions in it. They're not just all skins. Totally have a little bit of pay to win aspect in there. At least how I feel from the ones that I bought. I got the Draugr set, which gives you a hammer, which in the game I guess you don't find a hammer right away.
mm-hmm.
And this hammer also has poison on it. But then the
Oh,
whole
jeez.
armor set that you get with it all stacks to benefit you having poisoned enemies. And early on, I was just like wiping people out.
You're just hitting
Which,
people once and then watching them to slowly die.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And it was great for how I want to play. But if that's not your thing,
yeah,
maybe stay away from it. But some of the stuff looks cool. But it's definitely, you know, some OP little pay to win,
yeah.
if you may.
Are you riding around on the wolf?
I am not. I
No.
actually built the stable and completely forgot to go there, so I can
Oh,
switch
okay.
it because I have the Draugr horse.
Okay.
Because actually, in all my cutscenes and stuff, my eyes glow green from having that set on too. And I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh, this is awesome."
yeah. Uh, yeah. So, I don't
Oh,
know. I don't know if you can buy it or if it just comes with the Ultimate Edition, but you can ride around on a dire wolf. It's funny. It's goofy. Um, I think I've been doing it for a
to the
while, and the footage that I'm going to use, I'm riding around on it. But I think I'm going to switch back to the horse because it's maybe a
feels more
little
natural.
too goofy. Yeah, and also
Uh,
he howls. So, and I keep thinking it's wolves attacking me.
oh
So, like,
yeah,
if I get off the horse, yeah, the wolf, and I'm doing something, I'll hear the howls, and I'll be like, "Is it a wolf or is it my? Is it a wolf or is it Wolfie?"
right.
Um, and
Um,
also they use some of the same like hoof stomping sounds for the
oh,
paws
for
of
it.
yeah, of the paws of
Okay,
this wolf. So it's like it sounds like the when you're running fast, it sounds like it's going
right.
as opposed to
Uh,
like a padded paw.
yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of like sounds and stuff, the last thing I have to add in about this because this truly blew my mind. But if you have a helmet on that's a full face helmet,
Mm-hmm.
the game gives you a muffled sound like you're talking through that armor
Oh, really?
versus not having a helmet on. I thought it was the coolest fucking detail ever. Because I was like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, why do I sound funny? And I really listened. I was like, oh, it's because I got the helmet on because I have a full face helmet on
Yeah.
for
Does
the
it
set I'm using.
does it take it off randomly?
No, I haven't lost
No.
mine. Besides being like in like
No, no, no.
a
I
cutscene.
don't. Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, like, so you can toggle it. You can toggle all of your armor pieces on and off for cutscenes, for visual versus, actually being there. So like, I technically have this giant dead bear on top of my head all the
Hmm.
time, but it's toggled off. And at one point, I had toggled it on, and now it's off again, and I don't know why that happened.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that because I've noticed like for some cutscenes my helmet will be there, and then some other ones it won't be.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not something that I've actually toggled or touched or messed with myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's definitely some little glitches here and there in this game, which is the case with every giant open world game, especially of the Ubisoft variety, um, and some of it has taken me out of the immersion a little bit. Like I had this weird thing where animals and certain groups of people even were spawning in five at a time.
What?
So I would be running through the the open world on my wolf, and like five foxes would instantly spawn in front of me, and they'd all run off in different directions. Like the game was trying to spawn just one in for some ambient immersion or something like that, but it would be five of them.
Hmm. I
Or
think the weirdest.
I'd come across this big like brown pile of, like, it looked like some sort of eldritch horror with antlers sticking out the top of it, and then all of a sudden I'd get close to it and it would be five elk that would jump up and run away because they'd be scared of me. uh,
That's that's funny. Yeah, I haven't had really anything weird like that happen besides like I'll hit some people with a hammer and they'll go flying like a little further than I think they should. But I think the
yeah.
weirdest one I had was like I was in my regular town and or the town that I helped save with Soma,
Hmm.
and I needed to go talk to a couple of villagers to ask them questions, and all of a sudden every single one of them was just running screaming away from me. Like, and I'm trying to chase this person down, and finally like they kind of stumbled and rolled,
Yeah.
and I was able to hit the button, and then they talked to me like nothing was going on.
You tackle them down. It's like, tell me about the mead.
I was like, I'm just trying to ask you about last night,
Yeah.
and they're all
Yeah.
just like fucking running. I was like, okay,
Yeah. About
this
last
wasn't
night.
the place that I just burnt down, but
Yeah.
but I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
Overall, it's hard to complain too much about little things like that because these games are so big and there's so much going on in them. Um,
yeah, which is definitely going to be interesting in a couple weeks here with Cyberpunk with
yeah, yeah, we'll see
how
what
big.
that ends up being.
Uh, yeah.
Um, all right, so that's Assassin's Creed Valhalla, in a nutshell, right? Um, uh, that's on everything except for Switch right now. It's on PC, which is the version I've been playing. Initially, there were some performance issues in especially densely populated towns, but the latest patch that Derrick also talked about improved performance on his console, went out for PC as well, and it kind of made that game play ridiculously good. The only time I've seen a frame drop was actually during that raid I had talked about, where literally everything was blowing up and on fire around me. So it was like, okay, I can see this taking a little bit of a frame rate hit, but everything else has been absolutely perfect, which is saying a lot because these games have been a little bit performance heavy on PC for some time now. So they finally put out a one that um, runs really well. So yeah, I'm playing it on PC. It's on PS5, PS4, Xbox One, Xbox Series, fill in the blank.
Yep.
So yeah, I think this is a pretty good one, and I hope it keeps me interested all the way through because I'd love to check another one off of my list of this series.
Definitely a good one. And even if you don't like Assassin's Creed, like it's a fucking good Viking game.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This Listen, Assassin's Creed isn't really Assassin's Creed anymore.
No,
Um,
history simulator.
yeah, it's basically a snapshot of a history setting with some very loosely connected assassin versus Templar conspiracy theory stuff going through it. It's mostly just enjoying a moment in history with some famous people from that time period in a historical setting. That's what these games are. That's what I come to them for. The Assassin's
Hmm.
Creed stuff is kind of secondary at this point.
Yep.
So yeah, check it out if you've been a little bit off the train for a little while, and check it out if you haven't been, if you really like the series, because I think this is one that kind of transcends both demographics. But yeah, thanks, Derek, for chatting with me,
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
and we'll see you next time.
Later.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to see more. Check out voxelvoice.com for all of our great content, and consider supporting us on Patreon to keep our content ad-free and independent.